it up loud. Turn it up loud! Pop culture legends and a feral little crowd. Ink still wet, the gossip still hot. Yapping the truth that nobody's got. The Yap Tape.
All right, ladies and humans, yappers of all ages, today's guest needs no introduction, but he's getting one anyway because I've been waiting my entire life for this. Standing at flannel-clad excellence, weighing at 8 full seasons of television dominance, he is the beard, the myth, the man who made "I don't think so, Tim" a national catchphrase. He spent nearly a decade as the most competent man on Tool Time, really the only competent man on Tool Time, quietly saving Tim Taylor from electrocuting himself in front of a live studio audience every single week. He hosted Family Feud. He survived Air Bud World Pup. He's worn more plaid than the entire state of Oregon. The one, the only, Al Borland himself. Welcome, Richard Karn, to the Yapper Gazette.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe I can actually say I've worn more flannel than Oregon.
It might be, I think it might be close though.
Yeah, it's close, but it's tough to navigate that.
Well, I have to start at the beginning because your origin story sounds completely made up, and I need to know how much of it is real. For those that don't understand, Richard's origin myth is about Too Perfect. A Seattle kid managing an apartment building gets a traffic ticket and lands the role of a lifetime at traffic school. How much of that is true, and how did that actually go down?
It's all true. It's all true. I grew up in
It's
Seattle.
incredible.
And Seattle, is a very theater town. When I was growing up, we probably had 6 or 7 equity theater houses. There was a lot of theater, and that's what I grew up watching. I went through the training program at the University of Washington, which was a really good professional actor training program. And instead of moving to California, I moved to New York because that's where I figured I would do better, in theater. So I spent 11 years in Manhattan. Which is actually where I met my wife, doing a play off Broadway. And she ended up playing one of Jill's sisters, 8 years later.
That's so fun. So how long have you guys been together?
Well, we just celebrated our 40th.
I mean, oh, that's so cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we got married in 85, doing a play off Broadway called The Other Shore, directed by Walter Bobby, who years later ended up winning the Tony for the recreation of Chicago on Broadway. So
Amazing.
He feels like he cast us. While I was in New York, I met all of these incredible people that eventually helped me out when I moved to California. Years later, we moved to California in 1990. And actually, it was her idea. She was the one that wanted to start a family, not in New York, but in LA. And, she did musicals. And I thought, well, God, are you sure you want to give up New York? Because that's where musicals are. She goes, nope. I want to start a family, and this is where we're going to be. So that's why we moved to California. Now, all of those people that I met while being in New York ended up being a huge help in California, one of which was, well, 3 of which were the creators of Home Improvement, Matt Williams, David McFadzean, and Carmen Finestra, because I did a playwrights conference. Well, yeah, I guess so. As an actor, reading the plays in progress for the playwrights so they could hear their works in progress. And that's where I met those guys back in the mid 80s. So when I moved to California, I gave them a call and found out that they were doing, they just finished doing Roseanne. They were doing another show with Carol and Company, which they got me in. I did a day job, or 10 lines or something like that, which was pretty cool. And then I found out, literally at traffic school, that they were auditioning this show with Tim Allen called Home Improvement. So all of those little things were real, but there was like a lot of context in between all of that.
Yeah, sure. What an incredible time to like cross paths with them and knowing like what they were already doing in Hollywood at that time. So a lot of viewers might not know that you weren't the first Al. Stephen Tobolowsky was originally cast.
I was the first Al. Stephen's Stephen's character was Glenn. Tim was supposed to have an assistant named Glenn. And because Stephen was doing a play in New York, they called me up and said, listen, well, first of all, they let me audition, because even though it was cast, I could still meet their casting director. So I go in, I walk in and I do the audition. I know everybody in the room. I know Matt, David, Carmen, and John Pasquin, who was the director, because I had been a reader for him when he was auditioning, oh my gosh, a play at the Arena Theater in Washington 10 years before that. So I knew them. I just didn't know Deborah Barilski, who was the casting director. So I auditioned, made them laugh, had a great audition, walked away going, well, I did my job. I did my job, and maybe there'll be something down the line. And when Stephen couldn't do the pilot, they called me because they knew me. They knew I was a good guy and that I wouldn't mind just doing the pilot. And if the show got picked up, they would bring Stephen back in for the series.
So when did you find out, or when did you realize like this is my job now? Like you were in it for the rest of the series.
Yeah, well, it was slow. We did the pilot in April of '91, and
Okay.
Tootie and I are pregnant. I mean, we're pregnant with our son Cooper, who eventually came out March 4th of '92 during the first season of Home Improvement. But and I was an apartment manager. That was my great job, or our job, because we kind of did it together. But all we did was get free rent. It wasn't like we got paid much. We got rent, which was good enough. And I did the pilot, and I walked away from that pilot going, oh my God, this is going to be such a good show. It was so much fun to watch Tim, to watch these writers, to watch it evolve over the 10 days, because they're rewriting. And, little things that might work in 2 weeks of rehearsal, and we only had 10 days, they would switch it out and do something else, and it would be even better. That they actually also changed Pat. Pat Richardson wasn't the original wife. They
Oh,
had, yeah, I know. They had, oh gosh, the actress from, bear with me here because I can't remember certain stuff at the drop of an, she was in Titanic. She played the mother.
my gosh. I can't think of the name, but I know exactly who you're talking about. I watch that obviously all the time.
Yeah. Well,
Still to this.
she was the mom. And it didn't fit. Which was a
I could
scary
see that.
notion for a young actor. Watching somebody be replaced after 3 days of rehearsal. Frances Fisher, that was her name, Frances Fisher, replaced because she wasn't right. And I'm going, I talked to Carmen. I went, Carmen, she's a really good actress. She can change. She goes, no, there's something. It's something deeper. It's something. There's a chemistry there that isn't right. And I didn't understand until they brought Pat in. And then I'm watching the same scene with a different actress. I'm going, oh, wow, that is so different.
I can't even imagine anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, yeah.
that's the great thing when it all comes together, when it all, just me, Pat, even Earl, who wasn't the first guy cast as Wilson. That guy called him up and said, he didn't want to do it because his face wasn't going to be able to be seen. He had no foresight of what the possibilities could be. And, for a young actor, and maybe he wasn't that young. Maybe he had experience that he just had a different idea of what he wanted. But, me, you say yes, and then you find out amazing things happen, so,
It's a good thing you
that,
went with your gut for that. Now you said you did reportedly keep managing the apartment building through season one. When was the moment that you finally let that go?
Well, I didn't do
obviously,
it
and you
through
said
the
you
whole
were
season. I think
okay.
I only kept the job like maybe 2 months after we premiered, um, because I got a phone call from a somebody down on the first floor saying that their sink was stopped up. Could I come down? And it's like 6 o'clock at night. And I'm going, yeah, okay, I can do that. And I walk in, and like 15 of their friends are there, and he goes, you see, Al Borland is our apartment manager. And I looked at him, I go, oh my God, it's not my little bubble anymore. My little world has just expanded. And I went back up to two and I go, I think we have to get a new day job. I mean, I have a day job. I think this is it, and that's kind of when I knew it was going to happen.
Oh my God, to be a fly on the wall and see that moment happen as you walk in.
I know. I know. Well, I wish I could too. Yeah, because
Yeah,
there are certain memories that just are fragmented now. I can kind of remember it, but not fully. And then I'm telling stories about the first season or episodes, and then I go back after 30 years and watch the episode, and it's not there. I go, and it was something that got edited or got cut out. But in my retelling of the story, that was very clear in my mind. So it's funny how memory works.
yeah. So the traffic ticket turns into 8 seasons, over 200 episodes, and one of the most beloved sidekicks in sitcom history. So let's talk about the man, the beard, and the flannel.
Well, I had the beard because I was doing a play. I was doing Shakespeare's Scottish play, and the
Okay.
bad luck involved with the Scottish play, because there are witches involved in this play. And so there are historic references of all the bad luck of productions throughout the years. My bad luck was getting a traffic ticket. And I go to traffic school and I sit next to this woman who turns out to be an agent. And for 8 hours, in between learning about, what we should be doing behind the wheel of a car, we talk about the business. And she goes, well, these friends that you say you have, they're casting this show. And I go, well, they should have called me. So I called them. I called David. I go, hey, what's going on? He goes, no, there's nothing. There's nothing for you. And we've already cast it. So, but come in anyways. And actually, the corner where I got my ticket is where that agent lived. So there were all sorts of like little tiny, uh, you know,
Invisible string theory.
the invisible string theory. Yes, it was all connected.
That's pretty wild. Did you ever get to keep anything from set?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Actually, Valerie, our customer, she brought me in at the end. She goes, was there anything you want? And I'm looking at stuff, and there were some hush puppies that they had bought me that had plaid on the top of the shoes. And I go, well, those are fun. I might wear that. And there was like a plaid dinner jacket. I go, I might wear that sometime. I got my tool belt. I took my tool belt,
Oh,
but
yes.
it was not the original tool belt. They I come back after the first season, and it's the first episode back, second season, and I have this brand new tool belt. I go, "Where's my tool belt?" And they go, "Well, Disney took it." And they go, "But we're still doing the show. How can they take this amazing prop?" And they go, "Well, they put it in a glass box down at Disney World, and now it's iconic, and you have to deal with this new." Well, no, I want you to beat it up. I want you to make it dirty. I don't want a brand new. And literally, Al Borland didn't really have a tool belt. He had a painter's apron. If you go back and look at it, it's a painter's apron. It's not a leather tool belt. Tim got the leather tool belt. That was the dynamic of our relationship.
So you were the calm, straight man to obviously Tim's chaos. How much of the real you is in that character, and how much of it was you playing the most patient man on earth?
Yeah. I don't know if I'll ever know the percentages of that. A lot of Al was my dad, because he was a builder, he was a contractor, very, good at what he did, and didn't showboat, didn't, brag or anything like that. He just did the job. And that was kind of my, boiler point for Al, was that he knows what he's doing. He doesn't have to brag about it. And then the actor brain of me was like, I'm here, at first to help my friends out that need a guide to replace somebody for one show. And so I'm just there to facilitate, you know, um, giving Tim these grapefruits for him to hit out of the park, and not try and upstage or not try to do too much, not do anything, just be there listening. They wrote the role down a little bit. They probably took out, I have no idea how much script they took out that Glenn would have had. So a lot of that first pilot was just me being in the moment, being there for Tim, and just letting the audience find us, which they did after about 3 episodes. What Tim and I were doing, and the show hadn't aired yet, so nobody knows who we are. This is all brand new for them. They're watching a play basically, and they're laughing at stuff that is funny, but it's not like they know who these guys are. But they're laughing with them because of the chemistry, because of whatever we were doing was funny. And the writers eventually saw that. Yeah, they're going, wow, uh, which came to pass when my iconic line popped up. And it wasn't even supposed to be a big line. It was just, after a Tim joke. And Tim said something like, "Hey, Al, do you think they call it molding because it's been in the refrigerator too long?" And I let the audience laugh at that, and not do anything, not get in the way. And I remember saying to myself, "Don't do anything. Just don't do anything. Just sit there. Let them laugh. Look at Tim. Don't try to upstage or anything." And then I'm about to say something, and then they laugh again because of me just looking at Tim. Like, and I'm assuming that look for everybody in the audience was, "You are such a dumb," yeah, but that wasn't
Exactly.
my intent. My intent was just to do nothing. But our symbiotic relationship was on full bore there. And after that little laugh, I just went, "I don't think so, Tim." And I got another laugh. And the writers were like, "Okay, you did yourself a favor. We don't need Steven. We know who these two guys are, and it's working." So,
I
yeah.
think the chemistry probably surprised everyone. Tim even joked early on like he'd never be friends with Al. When did you two actually become real friends during filming? I'm assuming it sounds like it was pretty quick.
Well, it was quick. I mean, when you're an actor, you have actor friends, in
Yeah.
the plays that you're doing. You become, more than acquaintances. You're working together, and so there's a certain amount of trust build up and everything like that. But Tim and I took our time. I know he probably didn't think I was going to be around for much, and he had a whole bunch of stuff on his plate. I mean, he was the face of this new show, so he wasn't, yeah, he wasn't looking to make new friends. He was just trying to figure out this new medium for him because he'd been a stand-up on stage, and a little bit of what I was trying to do was to make him feel comfortable on in that sense on the stage doing whatever, which he never felt like he was a real actor yet. So I don't know if he had that confidence, but I just kept going, "No, this is great. Don't That was funny. That was funny. Come on, funny." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, okay, all right, all right." And we just kind of that's how our relationship grew. But yeah, he didn't think he would be friends with Al. Al was not somebody, cool enough to be in Tim's, worldview of a circle of friends. But he eventually it grew on him, and we had this relationship, this trust, where it came out years later when Tim and I were doing Assembly Required. This was about 4 years ago, and we did this show again for the History Channel. And Tim loves to argue, and he loves to argue politics. And he would just get on this tear about how whatever, whatever. And I'd had it up to here one day, and I went, "I'm sorry, I got to walk away, Tim. I'm walking away," and I walk away, and I come back 10, 20 minutes later, And he goes, God, Richard, thank you. I, I, I can't do that with my wife. If we're in an argument, I can't walk away, but we can because we're friends and we know that we're not going to be pissed at each other. It's just, that's what we are. And, that's kind of, a long standing friendship where, even if you disagree with the guy, you're still friends.
Yeah, which is great. And obviously that friendship has stuck because, like I was just about to mention, it's been over 30 years, and you two are still continuing to find each other through like Assembly Required, as you just mentioned, More Power, Last Man Standing, now shifting gears. He has said he sees you way too much. Who else from the Home Improvement cast do you actually stay in touch with?
Well, Debbie, I hang out with Debbie because we do fan expos, kind of like 90s nostalgia, that kind of stuff
Yes,
because of Home Improvement. So I'll do that. And that's fun. I don't want to do it a lot. It's a
yeah,
little
sure.
overwhelming, but every once in a while, it's kind of nice to to talk to people who grew up watching the show, and the realization that it's not really not about me anymore. It's about them and their memories of watching the show with their parents, with their siblings, with their grandparents, with whoever
Absolutely.
was around them when they were growing up.
So I know that you say you've gone to some conventions with Deb Dunning. What's it been like shifting back into that dynamic days later with like reunite, or decades later with reuniting on shifting gears?
That was fun. And Pat shows up, and Pat, Debbie, and I did it, and it was like falling back into a comfortable old chair. We were very comfortable around each other. I mean, obviously, it's different circumstances, and we have all of these, other things to talk about that have happened in the last, 20, 30 years. But it was fun. It was shifting gears, though, was a harder one to do because we didn't have the audience directly in front of us, which really helps when you're doing a live performance with an audience. We were off to the side. The set that we were used was off to the side. So it was like they were watching us on TV monitors. So there was a delayed reaction in our ears of laughs, or so that getting timing
Yeah.
was very different. Yeah, it was a little weird.
What was your favorite memory if you had to pick one from Home Improvement?
Oh, wow.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I think it was that. Well, obviously, it was that moment I'm walking down the hall and Matt Williams, the creator, goes, "Rick, you did yourself a favor. That was really good." And I'm thinking I had 3 lines. I don't know what I did, but that felt very satisfying. That was like a little really wonderful micro memory. But then working with some of our guest stars was so much fun. Chris McDonald, that's where I met Chris McDonald, and then years later he came to my charity golf event and learned how to play golf at my charity golf event. And then how many years later he becomes shooter. He's like known for being an amazing golfer.
That is wild. That's definitely I would put that on everywhere. Everywhere I get, I would tell. I taught Shooter McGavin how to golf. Is there, I obviously working on this set, there's a lot of props, but were there ever any moments where somebody could have potentially really gotten hurt?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's the potential for that always, always. And well, we had one episode where we were lifting off linoleum with dry ice. Which is, you can do that, but it's not very practical. But for tool time, it was a fun thing to do. And we brought in dry ice in like one of those little cats that a little bulldozer that had an arm, and then it would drop the thing. And Tim was supposed to go up onto the platform, drop the dry ice, and then come back. And we rehearsed, and then at the last second, the director goes, It's right there. Can you lift the arms just a little higher so I can see your face a little better? And so he moves it up, a few inches, which changes the equilibrium. And so when he went up onto that, half 6 inches flooring, the cat rocked way back. And the look on Tim's face was like, yeah, truly scary. And I'm standing right next to it, and I see the thing come crashing down like inches from my foot. And everyone's like rushing over. Tim, are you okay? Are you okay? I go, well, what about me? I almost had my foot amputated. So yeah. But if you go back and watch that episode, that's real terror in Tim's eyes.
I'm gonna have to. I'm even putting it in my notes right now because this is my favorite to get to hear these stories and then go back and like look for those like specific moments that maybe the audience didn't know, or obviously they might have known, but the viewers at the time didn't know how serious that was. Now we're gonna buckle up here with some feral questions. You are legally required to grunt like Tim Taylor to communicate for the rest of the interview, or you host Family Feud forever, but only for feuding families of raccoons. Which one do you pick?
Tim Allen grunts.
Is the greatest. Oh, that is so good. Thank you for that. Our viewers are gonna absolutely love that. That was spot on.
I actually did, without knowing it, a Tim Allen grunt in my audition. And I really didn't know his work. So I didn't know the grunting thing or whatever, but John Pasquin, because in my audition, I was, we were working with a lathe. And so I thought, well, I'll just make the sound of the lathe. I'll go, when you're working with a lathe, what you want, I did, and they're laughing. And then at the end they go, hey, okay, can you do that again? Can you make the lathe sound like a question? And I go, well, yeah, I'm a trained actor. I can do anything you need. So I go back, I do, so when you're working with a lathe, would you, and they laughed. And I didn't realize till months later when Tim goes, when he has the question grunt, I'm going, oh, they were just messing with me.
It's so good. Like, I don't think they could have, and obviously not even a biased opinion here, but they couldn't have picked a better duo for that. It holds up. Again, the chemistry that you two had was unreal.
Well, that's it. It was chemistry. On paper, in their minds, I was too much like Tim. That they knew me to be like Tim, way too much, the same height, same age, kind of. But when we went on to tape, when we went into film, I got heavier, Tim got thinner, and all of a sudden those similarities just kind of disappeared, and it started working for them. They wanted Stephen, who was taller and older. They wanted some difference in the two characters, and I was too much like Tim in their minds.
It was perfect the way it was, and I hope it's something that we never see a reboot of, because it was perfect. So we love to ask this question: defend the most indefensible opinion you hold. What might ruffle pet feathers out there?
Defend something that I really rude people.
Oh, that's perfect. I think we can all agree on that.
Rude people, they don't have to be rude. You can make decisions, micro decisions in the moment, but you don't know people's stories. You don't know what happened to them that morning, or what happened to them in their life, or whatever. So I will give them a little leeway, but being rude just for rude's sake is indefensible.
Yeah, I think the world needs more kind people.
Well, a lot of humor comes out of insult. insults. A lot of humor comes out of that, and that's just maybe the way we're built. But I know you've noticed this, but in the last 15 years or so, um, the entertainment world or industry has gone back and tried to find why certain villains were certain villains, or their origin story. Glinda and Esbala, and what's her name? I just said. Oh, well, anyway,
Yeah.
what else? Who else did they do that with?
Darth
101
Vader.
Dalmatians, Cruella
Yeah.
Deville. Why was Cruella so cruel? They've gone back and tried to justify where these villains came from. Now that's a good thing, but it's also, taking away the whole learning aspect of kids seeing, a villain and going, you know what, that's not what you should be doing, and don't try to justify why they are that way.
Survey says, name a household object you are absolutely certain you could not fix despite 30 years of playing a man who fixes everything. What is something that you typically now stay away from?
Fixing?
Yes.
I will not change the solenoid in my dishwasher. I've learned to hit the breaker if I'm going to be dealing with a light switch.
Smart. I just watched actually it was a clip this morning. We were sharing like some funny home improvement moments, and there's a scene where he's in the kitchen with one of the youngest boys.
That was the pilot.
Yeah, okay. That you already knew exactly where I was going. He
That was
goes
the
to
pilot.
clip something and shocks the hell out of him, and he jumps back and he's trying to walk it off, and it's really funny. And like, that's what we try to show our kids also, because we have little ones, and I'm like, stay away from light sockets, and like I will show them like clips like that so they can understand, oh, that's what's going to happen. Yes. That really happened. I'm like, he was really burnt. That was real. And they crack up every time. This has been an absolute dream. Before we let you go, I want you to tell the viewers and the fans, where can they find you? If there's anything to plug, if you're doing a convention, anything at all for the longtime Al Borland fans, how can they support you?
Well, I just did a movie with a friend of mine, and I don't know when it'll be out, but it was the comedy House of Tragedy, kind of a horror film. I play the sheriff. He's a good guy, but he's clueless. And then I did another thing that'll be shown on our phones, kind of verticals. You know what verticals are now?
Yeah.
You can explain that to your audience. I did Finding Hope,
Okay.
which was fun. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to Charleston to do trivia night at the Charleston Sports Bar at
That's
the
going
end
to
of
be
this month.
incredible.
Yeah. And I'm going to be in Kansas City next fall to do a play with my wife at the new theater called Hallelujah Girls.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. So
It's going to
lots
be
of stuff
great.
coming up.
Well, what is your social handle?
My son set it up for me. Isn't that always the
Okay.
case? I think it's the real Richard Karn.
Perfect. And they can find you on Instagram. I know they can also find you on Cameo, so you can book all of your favorite voiceovers, whatever kind of
Well,
video. Happy
cameos are really
birthdays.
cool because I can be very specific. You send me something, and I can be very specific to whoever you want to send a message to, and that's really fun. That's really kind of cool. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Last question of the day as we close out. It's one of the most important ones. If you could only say one more sentence to Tim Taylor for the rest of your life, is it? I don't think so, Tim.
I forgive you.
Perfect.
That's so Al. That is so Al.
Scan and go. Do scan and go. Do scan and go. the Scan and Co.
That's the tape, that's the yap, we're done. Thanks for hanging where the gossip spun. Touch some grass, it's free, they say. We'll be yapping again some other day. All yaps reserved.